The first scream came from the loudspeakers, and the whole crowd turned their heads. It was Saturday morning in the small town of Blue Harbor, Massachusetts, and the entire high school football stadium was packed not for football, but for something much stranger. Rows of folding chairs lined the middle of the field. 10 women stood at one side, 10 more at the other, each wearing numbered jerseys. The sun was bright, the air heavy with excitement, and everyone knew they were about to witness the craziest match in the town's history. "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcer's voice boomed, "welcome to the first ever Women Match Madness." Nobody could remember exactly who came up with the idea. Some said it was Mrs. Paula Kent, a retired teacher who always wanted more excitement in the town. Others swore it was a prank gone too far. Either way, when the flyers appeared all over Blue Harbor promising a competition of skill, strength, and madness for women only, people thought it was a joke. But now, seeing the women standing in line, the crowd knew it was very real. The competitors were from everywhere. There was Molly Hayes, a 28-year-old nurse from Canada who could lift a truck tire without breaking a sweat. Next to her was Emily Scott, a pale redhead from London with a sharp tongue and a sly smile. Beside Emily stood Chelsea Brown, a blonde surfer from Australia who had flown in just for this. And in the far corner, wearing a pink headband, was Samantha Jones from Indiana, tiny, but known for her lightning-fast reflexes. But the woman everyone whispered about was number 17, Caroline Brooks. She wasn't from town. She wasn't even from the state. Caroline had grown up in Alaska, lived in the Philippines for 3 years, then moved to New York. Nobody knew why she came here, but her calm blue eyes and the way she tied her hair back made her look like someone who came to win, not play. The match wasn't just one game. It was a series of strange challenges designed to test brains, brawn, and bravery. Each round would eliminate 2 women until only one remained. And the prize? $10,000 in cash, a gold trophy shaped like a crown, and bragging rights for life. In the crowd, teenagers waved posters, old men adjusted their binoculars, and families balanced paper cups of lemonade. Everyone was buzzing. The whistle blew. Round 1 was called the Island Grab. The women had to cross the stadium, jump into a shallow pool, and collect as many floating plastic islands as they could before the timer ran out. The islands were slippery discs painted in bright colors, and each one had a number written underneath. Caroline moved first, fast and smooth. She didn't splash like the others. She slid into the pool, grabbed 2 islands, and tossed them to her side before anyone else reached her. Chelsea, the Australian surfer, was right behind her, kicking water at her competitors. Emily Scott from London didn't even bother avoiding the splashes. She shouted insults in her British accent, making the crowd roar with laughter. Then something happened. Molly from Canada slipped, fell face first into the water, and accidentally knocked 3 islands toward Samantha Jones, the tiny one from Indiana. Samantha didn't waste the chance. She scooped them up and ran back to her corner. When the buzzer rang, the judges counted the islands. 2 women had the lowest numbers, Tina Walsh from the UK and a woman from Indonesia named Amina. They were out. The crowd clapped politely, but everyone was already looking forward to the next challenge. Round 2 was called Tower Trouble. The women had to build the tallest tower possible using nothing but large cardboard boxes while the opposing team tried to knock them down with dodgeballs. It was chaos. Boxes flew, women screamed, and dodgeballs bounced everywhere. Chelsea threw a ball so hard it sent 3 boxes tumbling from Molly's tower. Emily, instead of building, spent most of the time sabotaging others by yanking boxes away. Caroline built quietly, ignoring the chaos, her hands moving quickly. When the buzzer rang, her tower was the tallest by far, over 6 feet high. She didn't smile, but her eyes scanned the other women, calculating. The next elimination came. 2 more women gone. One was from Australia, the other from a small island in the Pacific. The crowd was now wild. The sun blazed overhead. The smell of popcorn mixed with the scent of fresh grass. People leaned forward, waiting for the next madness. The announcer took the mic. Round 3, the gauntlet. It was an obstacle course built across the football field, crawling under nets, climbing over walls, balancing on beams, and carrying heavy sandbags. The crowd loved this one because it was pure action. The whistle blew, and chaos erupted again. Caroline darted forward like a cat, clearing the first wall in seconds. Chelsea was strong but slower. Samantha surprised everyone, zipping through the tires and ducking under the net with incredible speed. Emily Scott, though, struggled. She slipped twice on the beam, nearly falling off, and cursed loudly each time. By the end, Caroline finished first, Samantha second, and Chelsea third. Emily barely made it before the timer rang. The two slowest, Molly from Canada and a woman from London's East End, were out. Now there were just 6 left. But before round 4 could start, something unexpected happened. A commotion near the bleachers caught everyone's attention. A tall man in a black hat was shouting at one of the judges, pointing toward Caroline. Nobody could hear the words, but the judge's face turned pale. Caroline, standing on the field, noticed too. For the first time all day, her calm expression broke. The announcer hesitated, his voice shaky. Folks, let's take a short break before we continue." The crowd murmured, sensing something was about to change. Caroline turned away from the man, but her eyes had lost their stillness. Whoever he was, she clearly knew him, and she clearly didn't want him here.
The break dragged on longer than anyone expected. Spectators shuffled in their seats, eating the last of their popcorn and squinting under the afternoon sun. Kids ran down to the fence to get a closer look at the contestants, while the announcer paced awkwardly near the microphone, clearly stalling. Caroline Brooks stood apart from the other 5 remaining women, her hands resting on her hips. Her blue eyes kept flicking toward the bleachers, where the tall man in the black hat was now leaning against the railing. He didn't look like the other cheerful spectators. His jaw was clenched, his hands in his coat pockets, even though it was too warm for such heavy clothing. Chelsea Brown, the blonde surfer from Australia, walked over to Caroline and smirked. "Friend of yours?" she asked, nodding toward the man. Caroline didn't answer at first. She took a slow breath. "Not a friend," she finally said. "Not even close." Before Chelsea could press for more, the whistle blew again. The announcer's voice was louder than before, as if he was trying to bring the crowd's focus back. "All right, folks, round 4, Mind Mayhem." This time, the women were led to long tables placed in the middle of the field. Each table had puzzles, riddles, and strange brain games waiting for them. The rule was simple: solve as many as you can in 15 minutes. The twist? Random blasts from an air horn and sudden sprinklers going off over their heads. The crowd loved it. Samantha Jones, the tiny but quick woman from Indiana, attacked the puzzles like a machine. She barely blinked as she connected wooden pieces and solved number patterns. Chelsea wasn't that either, though she grumbled loudly whenever the horn blared. Emily Scott, on the other hand, seemed to use the round more for entertainment than winning. She solved the puzzle, then leaned toward her neighbor to whisper sarcastic comments, making them laugh and lose focus. Caroline moved with quiet precision, a crossword here, a number locked there, but her mind wasn't fully in it. Every time the air horn went off, her eyes flicked toward the bleachers again. The man in the black hat hadn't moved, but she could feel his stare like a weight pressing between her shoulder blades. When the buzzer rang, the results were read. The 2 lowest scorers were out. One woman from Canada, who had somehow made it this far, and Emily Scott from London, who seemed almost relieved to be eliminated. She waved to the crowd dramatically as she walked off. Now, only 4 women remained: Caroline, Chelsea, Samantha, and the tall, athletic woman from the Philippines named Leila Torres. The announcer's voice dropped lower, more dramatic. "And now, ladies and gentlemen, the final round." The crowd leaned forward. This was what they had been waiting for all day. The final round was called Madness Mountain. It wasn't a real mountain, but a massive structure of ropes, platforms, hanging barrels, and swinging logs built in the center of the field. The goal? Climb to the top, grabbed the golden crown, and raced back down before anyone else. But before the whistle blew, Caroline heard footsteps behind her. She turned and froze. The man in the black hat was standing just beyond the edge of the field, where the contestants waited. Up close, his face was sharp, with deep lines around his mouth. His eyes were a cold gray, and they locked on hers. "You shouldn't be here, Caroline," he said, his voice low but firm. Her heart pounded. "Neither should you." "You think winning this is going to fix anything?" he asked. Caroline clenched her jaw. "It's not about fixing anything, it's about surviving." Before he could answer, the whistle shrieked, and the crowd roared. The four women sprinted toward the Madness Mountain. Leela was the fastest at the start, swinging herself up the ropes like she'd done it 1,000 times. Chelsea was right behind her, using her surfer balance to leap from one barrel to another. Samantha darted between them, small enough to slip through narrow gaps. Caroline's climb was slower, but steady. She didn't waste energy on fancy moves. Hand over hand, step by step, she made her way up. Halfway up the structure, the wind picked up, making the rope sway. Chelsea lost her footing on a swinging log and had to cling tight to avoid falling. Leela kept her lead, but Samantha was gaining on her. The crowd screamed encouragement. The announcer's voice cracked with excitement. But Caroline wasn't looking at the crown yet. She was scanning the edges of the field. And that's when she saw him again. The man in the black hat had moved closer, now standing near the judges' table. One of the judges kept glancing nervously at him. Caroline gritted her teeth and pulled herself higher. She didn't care if her arms burned. She didn't care if her hands slipped. All she knew was that she had to reach that crown first. Near the top, Leela reached for the crown, but Samantha leapt beside her, both of them grabbing it at the same time. They wrestled for it, teetering dangerously on the narrow platform. That's when Caroline made her move. She lunged forward, snatched the crown from their hands, and didn't pause to gloat. She began her descent fast, gripping ropes, sliding down barrels, ignoring the sting of rope burns on her palms. The crowd was on its feet, screaming. Chelsea was close behind her, but not close enough. Caroline reached the bottom, crown in hand, and the whistle blew. The announcer's voice roared over the speakers. "We have our champion, Caroline Brooks!" The cheers were deafening. Confetti cannons fired. The judges handed her the gold trophy and the prize money. Cameras flashed. But as she held the crown over her head, her eyes found the man in the black hat again. He was no longer smiling, if he ever had. Instead, he mouthed two words only she could see. "You're next." Caroline's fingers tightened around the trophy. Winning the match was one thing. Whatever came next was another game entirely.
The stadium was still echoing with cheers when Caroline left the stage. People pushed forward to shake her hand. Children held up scraps of paper for autographs, and the announcer was shouting into the microphone about history being made. But Caroline barely heard them. She kept her eyes straight ahead, gripping the trophy in one hand and the envelope of prize money in the other. The man in the black hat was gone. She had seen him slip away just as the confetti started falling, like a shadow disappearing before sunrise. Chelsea Brown caught up to her near the exit gate, still sweating from the climb. "You were insane out there," she said, grinning. "Where did that last move come from?" Caroline forced a smile. "Guess I just wanted it more." Chelsea laughed, clapping her on the shoulder. "Well, drinks are on me tonight. The Blue Harbor Tavern. 8 p.m. Don't say no." Caroline nodded vaguely, but her mind was already somewhere else. She needed to get out of the stadium without being followed. As she reached the parking lot, she felt that prickling at the back of her neck. Someone was watching. She turned quickly. Nothing. Just a few families packing into minivans and teenagers filming TikToks on the grass. Still, she didn't relax until she slid into her car, locked the doors, and started the engine. The drive out of town took her past the harbor, where fishing boats bobbed in the late afternoon sun. She remembered summers as a child when her mother would take her to places like this, before everything went wrong before she left Alaska. before she ended up in New York, before him. His name wasn't something she liked to say out loud. Nathan Riker. He used to be her stepfather. Not by blood, he'd married her mother when Caroline was 13. At first, he seemed charming, bringing her little gifts and telling funny stories. But over the years, the charm rotted away. He was controlling, secretive, and had connections to people who didn't like the law very much. By the time she was 18, she'd seen too much. She tried to tell her mother, but Nathan was always one step ahead. Eventually, Caroline left home, cutting all ties. But a man like Nathan Riker didn't just let people walk away. She had been on the run for almost 5 years now, working odd jobs in different states, never staying too long in one place. Competing in the women match madness had been a risk. She knew being on a public stage might draw attention, but she didn't think he'd actually find her here. Back at her rented cabin on the edge of town, Caroline placed the trophy on the small kitchen counter and set the envelope beside it. She stared at them for a long moment. Winning had felt good, but now it felt like a spotlight. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Congratulations, Caroline," said a voice she hadn't heard in years. Smooth. Cold. Her grip on the phone tightened. "What do you want, Nathan? You think I followed you here for a handshake?" His laugh was short. "You've been carrying something that belongs to me for a long time." "I don't have anything of yours." "Oh, you do. And now I'm giving you a choice. Bring it to me, or I take something from you." Her voice was ice. "You don't scare me anymore." "You should be scared," Nathan said. "You've made a lot of noise today. And noise attracts wolves." The line went dead. Caroline lowered the phone slowly. Her chest was tight, but her mind was sharper than it had been in months. She'd known this day might come, and she had prepared for it. In the back of the cabin, hidden under a loose floorboard, was a small metal box. Inside was a single USB drive. The last time she saw Nathan, she had stolen it from his office. She didn't know everything on it, but she knew enough bank transfers, illegal deals, names of people in high places. Enough to ruin him. That's why he wanted her alive. For now. A knock came at the door. Caroline froze. Another knock, louder this time. She grabbed the small kitchen knife from the counter and moved quietly to the door. "Who is it?" "It's me," Chelsea's voice called. "You weren't answering your texts. Thought you might have passed out from victory shock." Caroline exhaled slowly, lowered the knife, and opened the door. Chelsea stepped in, looking around the cabin. "Wow, cozy. Listen, I know you're probably tired, but I meant drinks tonight. It'll be fun. And there's something I want to talk to you about." "What kind of something?" Chelsea grinned. "A different kind of competition. Bigger, crazier, and with a prize that'll make 10,000 look like lunch money." Caroline's stomach tightened. Another competition meant more eyes on her. More risk. But maybe also more leverage. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she glanced at the trophy on the counter, the envelope of cash beside it, and the hidden box under the floor. She knew one thing for sure: her life had just stopped being about the women match madness. This was a different kind of game now. And Nathan Riker had just made the first move. The Blue Harbor Tavern smelled like salt, old wood, and fried seafood. It was the kind of place where sailors told tall tales and locals pretended not to listen. Chelsea Brown waved Caroline over to a corner booth. 2 drinks already waiting. "About time. I was starting to think you'd stand me up." Caroline slid into the booth, keeping her back to the wall so she could see the door. It was an old habit, one she'd never been able to shake. "So," Caroline said, wrapping her hands around the cold glass, "tell me about this competition you're so excited about." Chelsea leaned forward, lowering her voice. "It's called the Titan Trials. Ever heard of it?" Caroline shook her head. "It's invitation only. No posters, no sign-ups. You get in because someone who's already competed recommends you. It's not just one day like Women Match Madness. It's a week-long event. Physical challenges, mental puzzles, endurance tests, but the prize is $500,000. Caroline's fingers tightened on her glass. "Sounds intense." Chelsea smirked. "It is. And I just so happen to have an invite for the next one. I can't go alone. They allow teams of 2. I think you'd be perfect." Caroline studied her. Why me? Because you don't crack under pressure, Chelsea said simply. And because I saw the way you move. You're strategic. That's rare. The flattery didn't work on Caroline as much as Chelsea probably thought, but there was something else, something dangerous in the offer. The Titan trials meant attention, and attention meant risk. But $500,000 could buy a lot of safety. Before she could answer, the tavern door opened. The man who stepped inside wasn't Nathan Riker, but he might as well have been a warning. Tall, built like a wall, with a clean black suit that didn't belong in a place like this. He scanned the room once, then his gaze locked on Caroline. Chelsea noticed. Friend of yours? Not the friendly kind, Caroline muttered. The man didn't come over. He just gave a slow, deliberate smile, then walked back out. Caroline's heartbeat quickened. Nathan wasn't coming himself, he was sending people. Which meant she was already running out of time. Chelsea tapped the table. You okay? Caroline forced her voice steady.
Yeah.
Just thinking about your offer. Think fast, Chelsea said. The trials start in 3 days. We'd have to be in Vancouver by then. Vancouver. That was far enough from Massachusetts that Nathan might have to work harder to find her. And if she played the trials right, maybe she could find a way to end this once and for all. She leaned back. All right. I'm in. Chelsea grinned like she'd just won the lottery. You won't regret it. Caroline wasn't so sure. 3 days later, they were on a ferry bound for a private island off the coast of British Columbia. The water was choppy, the wind sharp with salt, and the island ahead looked more like a fortress than a resort. High cliffs, thick pine trees, and just visible through the mist tall metal structures that could only be part of the competition course. At the dock, security guards in dark uniforms checked IDs and patted down bags. No phones were allowed. No outside contact. Once you were on the island, you stayed until the trials ended one way or another. The moment they stepped through the gates, Caroline felt the eyes on her. Other competitors were sizing them up, men and women from all over the world, fit and sharp-eyed. Some looked like professional athletes, others like soldiers. A loudspeaker crackled to life. Welcome to the Titan Trials. You have been chosen because you are the best or you are willing to risk everything to become the best. Over the next 7 days, you will face challenges that will push your body, your mind, and your willpower to the breaking point. At the end, only one team will claim the prize. Chelsea's eyes shone with excitement. Caroline's eyes scanned the crowd. That's when she saw him. Nathan Riker. Not in the flesh, but on the balcony above, standing beside one of the event organizers, talking like he belonged there. His black hat was gone, but she'd know that face anywhere. Chelsea followed her gaze. You know him? Caroline's voice was tight. Too well. Should we? No, Caroline said quickly. We're here now. We finish this. Because suddenly, the Titan trials weren't just about money anymore. If Nathan Riker was here, then the game had changed again. And this time, Caroline wasn't just playing to win. She was playing to survive. The first day of the Titan trials was brutal. Caroline and Chelsea had been dropped into a dense pine forest with nothing but a compass, a rope, and a water canteen. The goal: navigate to the other side of the island before sunset, while collecting hidden markers along the way. The terrain was rough, steep hills, muddy slopes, and thick roots that caught your boots. Chelsea kept up a steady pace, her competitive energy fueling her. Caroline stayed quiet, saving her breath for the climb. But in the back of her mind, every snap of a twig or rustle in the trees set her on edge. She knew Nathan was somewhere nearby. By the second day, the challenges got worse. Obstacle courses hung over freezing water. Puzzle stations required solving under blinding spotlights while freezing rain poured down. Caroline and Chelsea kept winning just enough points to stay in the top half of the leaderboard. But Nathan was in her periphery constantly. He wasn't competing, he was an observer, walking the sidelines, talking to event staff, occasionally watching her with that thin, cold smile. On the morning of the 5th day, Caroline woke in the shared barracks to find a folded note under her pillow. Bring the drive tonight, or your partner doesn't make it to the final. Her stomach dropped. She didn't need to ask how Nathan knew she still had it. She didn't even need to wonder how he'd gotten into the barracks under heavy security. She knew his type rules didn't apply to him. Chelsea noticed something was wrong at breakfast. "You're quiet," she said, sipping her coffee. "Just thinking about today," Caroline said. Today was the semi-final 3 events back-to-back. The first was a strength test, hauling massive crates across a muddy field. The second was a balance trial crossing a swaying bridge over a rocky gorge while carrying a flag. The third, the organizers called it Survivor Sprint. No one knew what it meant until they saw it. A race to the top of the island's cliff, with competitors dragging weighted sleds behind them. By the time Caroline and Chelsea reached the final stretch, their legs burned and lungs screamed for air. Chelsea pushed hard, but Caroline noticed a figure step into the trees just ahead. Nathan. He wasn't supposed to be there, but he stepped into the path like he owned it, holding something in his hand. Caroline's sled jerked to a stop. Chelsea glanced back. "What's wrong?" Nathan spoke calmly, too calmly for a man blocking a race. "Last chance, Caroline. Give me the drive and I let you both walk away. Keep it," and he glanced at Chelsea.
Well,
Accidents happen in games like these. Her heart hammered. She could almost feel the weight of the metal box back in her cabin in Blue Harbor thousands of miles away. She could lie, tell him she didn't have it. But she knew Nathan. Lies only bought seconds. Chelsea's voice was sharp. "Who is this creep?" "A problem," Caroline said. The rest of the competitors were far enough behind that no one else saw the standoff. The wind whipped across the cliffside. "You have 5 seconds," Nathan said. Caroline dropped the sled rope, stepped forward, then moved faster than she had in any round of Women Match Madness. She slammed into Nathan, shoving him sideways into the mud. His hand opened, dropping what she realized was a thin wire garrote style. Chelsea's eyes widened. He was... "Run!" Caroline shouted. They grabbed their sled ropes and sprinted the last 100 yards. By the time Nathan pulled himself out of the mud, they had crossed the finish line. The final round came the next morning. The last 4 teams stood before a massive structure that made the Madness Mountain back in Blue Harbor look like a playground. Ropes, walls, swinging hammers, vertical climbs, even sections where you had to swim through dark tunnels before resurfacing. The prize money was locked in a glass case at the very top. The air was thick with tension. Caroline scanned the crowd of observers. Nathan was gone. That almost worried her more. The whistle blew, and chaos erupted. Caroline and Chelsea moved like they'd trained together for years, Chelsea taking the faster climbs, Caroline handling the precision sections. The other teams fought to keep up, but Caroline's mind was in 2 places at once, on the course and on where Nathan might be hiding. They were halfway up when the first sabotage happened. One of the swinging hammers froze in place, then suddenly released, nearly crushing Chelsea. She barely dodged in time. "That's not an accident," she shouted. Caroline's pulse spiked. Nathan had found his way into the event's veins. Every move from then on was survival. Caroline scanned for tripwires, loose boards, anything that could be turned against them. Twice, she spotted tampered ropes. Twice, she yanked Chelsea away just in time. Finally, they reached the top. The glass case loomed ahead. Chelsea smashed it with the provided hammer, grabbing the suitcase of cash. The crowd roared below. And then Caroline saw him. Nathan was standing by the finished platform, just beyond the cameras, smiling. Not the cold, thin smile from before. This one was wider. Triumphant. He mouthed the words again. "You're next." But Caroline didn't break eye contact. She raised her voice just enough for him to hear over the noise.
no.
"You are." Because in her other hand, tucked tight, was something no one had seen her grab, one of the event's mounted cameras, ripped free during the climb. A camera that had recorded every second of Nathan's sabotage. When she and Chelsea crossed the finish line, she didn't head for the celebration. She headed straight for the event's organizers, dropping the camera in their hands. The rest happened fast. Security swarmed. Nathan tried to walk away, but the footage was clear. Within minutes, he was surrounded and escorted off the island. By sunset, Caroline was holding $500,000 and her freedom, at least for now. Chelsea grinned, holding her share of the prize. You never told me this was going to be life or death. Caroline smiled faintly. Some games are. As the ferry carried them back toward the mainland, the island shrinking behind them, Caroline felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not just victory. Relief.
For now.
The Yendi,